Hi, for today's video, I'd like to cover a subject that probably matters most for people more than anything else on the planet for success in any area of life, and yet is talked about almost the least. You can see behind me, I got a bunch of books. I have studied this subject for years, and there are not a lot of good books on this. I actually have not found one great book on this. It's the thing that makes the biggest difference in our lives. It affects your business. It affects your sales. It affects your marketing. It draws people to you. It affects who's attracted to you as an intimate partner. It affects how well you learn, how you bounce back from mistakes and failure. Do you shrivel up and die, or do you kind of bounce back? It affects how risky something is. Whether you're driving in a vehicle or whether you're investing in something or making any decision, it makes things riskier if you don't have this. You know what it is? It's confidence. I'm going to repeat those things that I just mentioned. When you have confidence, your business grows in really unique ways because people are drawn to you. Your sales grow because you speak with confidence. People start to believe in what you believe in. Your marketing goes up because you communicate well rather than a place of fear. It affects who is attracted to you as an intimate partner. My wife has often said one thing that attracted her was that I was confident. Confidence is this fascinating thing that it draws people to you. It affects how well we learn. So again, I said, people who lack confidence question themselves. So when they face failure and mistakes, they have a tendency to shrivel up and shy away from things, whereas confident people can push forward and grow and change and learn so much from an experience. Again, it affects how risky something is. Have you ever watched a driver who lacks confidence? Watch how they do, how they drive. They're actually quite dangerous on the road. Watch somebody who's confident, not arrogant. I'm not talking about like the 20-something male who is driving like an idiot, okay? Not that all 20-year-old males drive like idiots, but it seems that there are many of them, okay? Legitimately, it affects how risky something is. When you lack confidence, there's a change. So I'll give you an example. I played a lot of sports when I was younger, and we had this, when I was going to school, university, there was this chasm that everyone tried to jump across, and no one was able to make it. And I was able to jump across. And it wasn't because primarily I'm this fantastic athlete. Primarily it was because I know that when I jump and it's over a chasm or something, I've jumped over enough things now that I know that if I question myself in the moment, I'll just hesitate a little bit. Whereas when I go with everything that I've got, I typically make it. People who have fear hold back. So again, I talked about how it affects decision making. Confidence affects every area of your life. Every area of your life. And today what I want to discuss is what is it? How do you get it? How do you lose it? How do you get it back? And how do you maintain it in different ways? And I want to encourage you at the beginning of this video, confidence is not primarily genetic. I'm going to repeat that. It's not primarily genetic. I don't believe that. This is something anyone can change significantly if you're willing to work at it. It takes effort. But confidence is something you can grow. It's not something you are stuck with. You're not stuck with a lack of confidence. It's not the way it works. Now, at its base, confidence is simply a belief. This is a quote that I've been working on for a long time because I've been trying to kind of summarize it, give a definition of confidence. And this is my definition. Confidence is the short or long-term belief that you have what you need to accomplish the task in front of you. I repeat that again. Confidence is the short or long-term belief. It's the belief that you have what you need to accomplish what is in front of you. So if you have confidence, if you've got confidence when you're speaking publicly, then you know that you can go in front of an audience and you can speak, and even if there's a problem with the sound equipment or whatever, the lights change, if somebody starts heckling, whatever it is, you've got confidence, you can handle that. Confidence is in a sales call. Let's talk about business. Confidence in a sales call is if people have objections, if they start reacting in really unique ways, you can connect with them rather than go, oh, I don't know what to do, and freeze. right? Confidence is the ability to communicate with somebody, and if they get angry or if they get sad or if they whatever's going on in that communication, or you're meeting somebody who you're attracted to in some way, that you can simply connect with them rather than be so self-conscious that you scare them away. That's what confidence is. It's a belief that you have what you need to accomplish what's in front of you in the moment. Now, you can be confident in certain areas of life and lack it completely in other areas. So, for example, like the typical shy musician who performs in front of huge groups of people and yet can't string a few words together on their own just meeting somebody on the street because they're really shy. So they've got confidence in their music and in their presentation, but they lack confidence in communication or relationships. Or again, confidence in business. Some people can be really confident in business. I know somebody who is incredible at business, and yet they are awful in relationships, terrible in relationships. And actually the relationships in business they're fairly good at. But when it comes to family, when it comes to friends, they're awful. Now, one thing before I move forward with this is to cover what is the difference between confidence and arrogance. This is a question that I get all the time when I'm talking about confidence. And my clients will ask me, well, Mark, I don't want to be arrogant. Yeah, I want to grow in confidence, but I'm afraid to be arrogant. Listen, confidence and arrogance have nothing to do with each other. They don't have anything in common. Confidence is the belief that you have what it takes to handle whatever is in front of you, okay? Arrogance is making up for feeling inadequate. An arrogant person does not feel confident. An arrogant person is a bully. An arrogant person is coming across greater than they actually believe they are. Why? It's to hide things inside themselves. Think about the bullies. Think about the people in your life that you know, that you've grown up with. And look at, were they confident or were they making up for something else? People typically, when they feel a lack of confidence, they react in one of two ways. It's kind of fight or flight, right? So either they're shy away from situations, or they'll push themselves in situations. I've got somebody very close to me who actually does both. What they'll do is typically hold back, and then feel really bad about themselves that they're holding back. And so they're just kind of like, yeah! And they kind of vomit all over somebody and come across almost overbearing. And that's not arrogance, it's simply overbearing. But it's the same idea. So don't worry if you want to have confidence and you're afraid of becoming arrogant. Don't worry about that. Grow in your confidence. You don't have to fear arrogance, because if you become a confident person, you won't typically be an arrogant person. Okay? I actually don't believe you can. So if confidence is a belief that kind of I've got this, it would be a short definition of confidence. I've got this. Then we need to discuss beliefs. If you believed fully that you could handle anything that came your way in life, would you be fearful in situations? If you knew you could handle it, would there be any fear? Think about, and this is a fictitious character, I'll use some real examples as well, but think about Superman. What does he fear? What does Superman fear? Well, he doesn't fear anything, really, and the reason he doesn't fear it is because he knows he can handle it. Because he's not focused on himself, because he's not focused on what he does, he comes across as really confident when he's Superman, right? When he's Clark Kent. But that's an example of how somebody confidence is directly the opposite, and in so many ways of fear. When you have fear, you pull back or you push forward or you do things in odd ways. When you're confident, you can relax. You can relax and simply do the things that you know you've got. So let's talk about real life examples. We'll talk about business. What about Warren Buffett or Bill Gates or Oprah Winfrey? If you challenged Warren Buffett or Bill Gates or Oprah Winfrey, imagine what the response would be if you really challenged them. Like, you don't know anything about business. You don't know anything show business. You don't know anything about money. What do you think their response would be? Do you think that they would laugh and they would demean you if you asked that question or you challenged somebody with that? Those three people, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, Oprah Winfrey, I don't think so. I don't think that they would demean you. They don't come across to me. I've never met any one of them, but they don't come across to me as people who would embarrass you because they don't feel fear about business or money. They get business and money. They're excellent at business and money. So if you challenge them in that area, they don't have to make up for feeling bad about themselves. They can simply go, okay, obviously this person has got something going on. How do I handle this? But they're not going to be browbeating you, or they're not going to feel fear. Oh, this person challenged me. This person from the audience. Do I really know about? Do I really think I know about business? It's not the same, right? How about the best athlete, or the best actor, or the best director, or the best engineer, or architect, or whoever? If you found the best in that industry and you challenged, would they feel threatened? No, they wouldn't feel threatened. At least not if they're confident. They're not going to feel threatened by questions or challenges because they know their stuff, and they know. So they don't worry about it. Often on the phone, sometimes when I'm doing a sales call and somebody says, well, Mark, like, how are you going to help me? And they're kind of challenging me. When I didn't have confidence in myself, and this is years ago, I would be thrown off with that question or challenge. Now I realize this has nothing to do with me. This person is asking a simple question. It's a good question. Can you help me? Can you help me? That's a legitimate question. And so now, instead of focusing on myself, which is where fear goes, fear is very self-focused, very selfish. It's just about protection, right? Lashing out or hiding or whatever for protection. Confidence is the exact opposite. It's reaching out. It's being willing to be vulnerable. It's somebody who doesn't fear. So they can, instead of focus on themselves, they can focus on somebody else and what they're bringing to it. So again, how do we change a belief? I'm going to give you a 3-step process that I help clients with generally on how change beliefs. I'm not going to give you everything to change a belief completely right now. This is a long process for a lot of people. You don't change beliefs in an instant. From whatever you hear from snake oil salespeople, if you change a belief in 5 seconds or 5 minutes, it's not changed. It's going to come back, especially if it's been a long-term belief, okay? Having said that, typically how we change a belief, and there can be fast situations, trauma can change beliefs quite quickly, right? But the way we change a belief, typically, number one, we need to first believe it's possible for someone else. So if we need to change a belief in us is, can I speak on stage? Can I sell better? Can I grow in my marketing? Can I grow my business when times are tough? Whatever, in an economic downturn. First, we need to believe that it's possible for somebody else. So you look at the 1930s and you look at 2008 and you look at other situations, you go, wait a second, actually a lot of people do really well. Businesses grow significantly, a lot of them, in struggling economies. Well, if that's the case, could it be possible for me? And that's the second step. So the first step is we need to first believe that it's possible for someone else. Secondly, we need to believe it's possible for me. Possible. And the third step in belief is believing that it's going to happen. Believing that it's going to happen. So again, that's confidence in something. And let's use an example, okay? So let's say, oh, you know what? A great example is what is his name? The 4-minute mile, Roger Bannister. So he ran the 4-minute mile in the 40s, 50s, whenever, I think it was in the 50s. So up until that time, people believed that running a sub 4-minute mile was impossible. A sub 4-minute mile was impossible. And Roger Bannister came along and broke the 4-minute barrier. Now, here's the cool thing. As far as we understand, as far as recorded history goes, we don't know anyone that broke the 4-minute mile before that. And yet, Roger Bannister comes along, he breaks it. Guess what happens? Within a few months, a whole bunch of people break the 4-minute mile. What happened there? The significant thing that happened was that everyone else who didn't believe it was possible believed it was possible for Roger. And when they believed that, they went, wait a second, most of us are better runners than Bannister. So if it's possible for him, I think it's possible for me. And then they went out and tried it. Okay? Now, again, I'm not explaining very much here, but I want to give you some basics. I'm not going to spend hours and hours in this video, so I simply want to give you a basic understanding of a lot of different concepts when it comes to confidence, okay? So how to change a belief, you need to first believe it's possible for someone else, then you need to believe it's possible for you, then you need to believe it's going to happen. And the way you're going to do that, I'm going to give you a really brief explanation here. The way you need to do this is find other people who have done what you want to do. Hear their stories, and you will consistently read biographies, get to know people, interview them, and you will find that they struggled with a lot of the same things you're struggling with. And when you do that, that's when it starts to become possible for you. You believe it's possible for them, you believe it's possible for you. And then again, you've got to work on that belief a lot, which I'm going to talk about for kind of the rest of this. So how do we lose confidence? The way people typically lose confidence, the way people lose confidence the quickest, is in social situations. This is the fastest way. We are social creatures. This is why schools are really tough for a lot of kids. For a lot of adults going through that, the education system is really difficult. Why? Because when we're young, often social situations, if you're laughed at in a group when you're 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 years old, that has a massive consequence for most people, okay? So we lose confidence quickest usually in social situations. When people are laughing at us, or when we feel browbeaten by people in authority over us, people that we care about, or large groups of people, typically we lose our confidence fastest in those, okay? This is why public speaking is difficult for a lot of people. We are social creatures. But the other side of that, the flip side of that, is how do you gain confidence? Well, you gain confidence quickest, fastest, when you are in social situations. So when somebody in authority over you, and when somebody you respect and you care about, or when a group of people says something to you in a certain way, like, that was fantastic, and you hear it over and over again, or people consistently say, so something that grew my confidence. I used to be an awful public speaker. I was so terrified that I had the gross smelly sweat when I spoke publicly, and I was so nervous. My teeth chattered. I wasn't even able to speak English most of the time because I was so nervous. When I did it enough times, what started to happen was first of all, people never browbeat me or complained about it. They saw that I was nervous, and they didn't say I did a great job at first, because they were honest with me, at least most of them. But most of the time, they didn't do anything bad to me, and I realized it's safe on some level, okay? And then as I did it more, and this is where I really grew confidence in my public speaking, was when people came up and said, Mark, we went to this seminar, we went to this weekend event, we went to whatever, you were by far the best speaker. I've heard that many, many, many times. Now, when you hear that from many strangers, as well as sometimes when family or friends come and they go, Mark, you're really good at this. That gives confidence. It's social affirmation. It makes a huge difference. That's not usually the first step. So how long does it take? Actually, you know what? I'm going to step back. How long does it take to grow your confidence in any area of life? I'm going to give you a basic understanding. And I heard this from another coach one time, and it makes so much sense to me. If you want to grow your confidence, it's quite simple. It's actually quite simple. Not necessarily easy, but it's very simple. And that is, you grow your confidence when you've done things enough times to know how to do it. So you grow in your confidence in fishing when you've done it a lot of times, or riding your bike when you've done it enough times, or walking, or tying your shoelaces, or whatever, doing a somersault, or a cartwheel, whatever. You grow confidence by doing things. And when you fail at it, and you grow at it, and you try it again, and once you've done it enough times, you go, oh, I've got confidence in this. And then there's a greater overarching confidence. So you can have a confidence in a certain skill, like cartwheels, or public speaking, or whatever it is, sales calls, marketing, writing, speaking, whatever it is. And then there's a different kind of confidence, like a confidence that's kind of overarching. I can handle a lot of situations, and that's different. So again, think about that like the shy musician I mentioned a little while back. If there's a shy musician, they have confidence in one area with music, but they might not have confidence in speaking to people. Once you have confidence in many small areas, your confidence overall starts to grow. So again, I'm going to back up a little bit. How long does it take to grow your confidence in any area of life? This depends on a lot of things. This depends on a ton of different things. Number one, how complex is the skill or area you want to grow in? For example, if it's confidence in public speaking is going to be more complex than certain activities and less complex than others. So for example, public speaking is far more difficult than learning basic computer skills. You can go online, you can have someone around you teach some basic computer skills in 5 minutes, and you've got it, okay? You know how to turn it on and type finger peck on the keyboard, whatever it is, right? Or open Windows or delete something, whatever it is. You can learn these things fairly quickly. So public speaking is a far more difficult skill than learning some basic computer skills. But public speaking is going to be far easier than becoming a great leader for business. To become a great leader and to be confident in your leadership skills over a long period of time takes a long period of time, because it involves multiple different types of relationships and growth opportunities. It's an extremely complex skill set. So again, it depends on how complex the skill or area you want to grow in is. Secondly, how much confidence do you currently have in it? If you are, we'll use public speaking again. If you are already public speaking on some level, maybe even going to Toastmasters, you're taking a Dale Carnegie course, or whoever it is, if you've grown a little bit in this, it's not going to take a lot longer to grow a lot. Having said that, if you've never spoken in front of anyone except for a friend, never even a group of 3 people because you're too shy, it's going to take a lot more time, okay? Because it's a lot more complex than your current skill set. Number 3, what kind of support system and coaching do you have around you? If you've got a great support system that understands public speaking, then they can support you. You can get coaching all over the place. Or if you've hired a great coach, now that person can invest in you and really speed up the process. Number 4, how ingrained is fear for you? How ingrained is fear for you? If for public speaking, if you are terrified of looking bad in front of a bunch of people, then public speaking is going to be more difficult for you than the person who isn't terrified, right? So I'm going to repeat these 4 things. You got to ask yourself, if you want to know how long it's going to take to build confidence, how complex is the skill or area you want to grow in? How much confidence do you currently have in that area? What kind of support system and coaching do you have to help you? And number 4, how ingrained is the fear that might prevent you from getting there? Fear is an incredibly powerful demotivator in many ways. Okay, so how do you build confidence? Basically, you break down the thing that you want to learn. So if you want to learn great sales, well, you start by talking to people who give you great feedback and aren't scary. Maybe you take a course on sales. Maybe you hire the right coach or whoever it is. So you basically come up with a plan, right? And then, again, even when you're practicing sales, if you want to become better at it, you want to practice at the start with people who know you and like you, and they're not going to give you harsh criticism. Safe people, that's going to build some confidence. Then maybe what you do is you practice with simply influencing your kids or your partner. So you sell people on eating their broccoli or the trip you'd like to take or whatever it is. When you start selling ideas and you realize that, sales is just influence. And if I get better at influence, not manipulation, but influence, then I'm going to be better at sales in general. Now maybe you can develop a number of relationship skills with people you know. So, and maybe again, this is coming back to influence, but it's like active listening, asking great open-ended questions, developing rapport easily with people, asking challenging questions, providing calls to action or challenges to people on what they should be doing. Well, once you've started to develop these other micro skills, then you can maybe start speaking with people who are warm or hot leads. Maybe they don't know you, but they're warm or hot leads. And you practice your sales skills with them. And then last, you move to kind of colder leads. People who don't know you and then they're kind of cold, or they don't know anything about you, or they're not excited about the product you're offering or the service you're offering. Once you do that, what you've done is you've broken down confidence in sales to many individual steps. When you break something down, you can build skills in that area far, far quicker, okay? I shared in a video a couple weeks ago on YouTube. I talked about fear and panic, and I talked about the guy who was in his 40s or 50s, and he came to me and he was terrified of going to a public washroom, even entering it. And I talked about how we built confidence in a very short time for him, and he did things that he was able to do things that he hadn't done in 30 years. It was fantastic for his life. You can do this fairly quickly, but you've got to grow yourself, okay? And you've got to break it down into different steps. Another thing that I'd encourage you to do is practice motivating yourself towards doing what is important rather than comfortable. We live in a culture and time and society where doing what is comfortable is very easy. Doing what is important is not always easy. We focus on urgency. We focus on the telephone, text or email or whatever, what's right in front of us, rather than what do I need to do to build my business. We focus on, hey, I don't want to have this conversation because it's going to be uncomfortable, rather than going, this is good for the long-term benefit. It's delayed gratification. So practice this. You can do this through mission statements, affirmations, goals, visualization. Focus on what you want, long-term, not short-term. And then you can ask yourself great questions to motivate yourself. And again, this is an entirely different topic, but I'll touch on it right now. What do I want more? This is a question you need to ask yourself every day. What I do all the time. What do I want more right now? Do I want business success or comfort? And there are times where I will answer, and I kind of want comfort. But most of the time, if I'm honest with myself, I go, you know what? I really want business success. So I'm going to do the thing that I need to do. It helps me. Or you can ask yourself a really easy question. Instead of saying, are you going to do this or not? Like kind of like the old motivational video type mentality, you can ask yourself simple questions like, am I willing to take the first step today? Or am I willing to take the first step right now? I'm not going to do everything, but am I willing to look for the phone number? Am I willing to call the phone number? When you ask yourself that, often, and when you break it down again, often it becomes easy. So I'm going to talk again. I'm jumping around a little bit. I'm going to try to give you a base in many different ways, and then I'll get to a few specific steps to grow your confidence, okay? There are three kind of types of confidence. One is external confidence. So public speaking or snakes or whatever. They're these things with how we interact with people or things, okay? And then there's internal confidence, where it's about rejection and failure and shame. How do we deal with situations internally, okay? And what this is really coming down to, again, so there's the external piece, which we need to learn those skills. That's the first piece. And then there's the internal piece. Once we learn those skills, it becomes deeper. Confidence becomes deeper and more foundational for us, okay? It goes from the external to the internal. I go, hey, wait a second, I can handle this. I don't fear failure anymore. I don't feel shame when I'm on the stage or doing whatever, having a sales call. We learn the skills first, then it goes deeper and becomes internal confidence. And as we grow in our internal confidence, it becomes a very overarching global confidence for us, where now I can say consistently, I'm enough. I'm enough. I've got what it takes to handle different situations. And that's fantastic for confidence, and that's where you want to get, okay? So you move from the external, I'm working on a skill, to the internal, like, hey, I'm pretty good at this, to finally, hey, I can handle a lot of situations. And that's where true confidence comes out. But you got to start off with the skills, and you got to start off with the skills over and over and over again. You develop this skill set and develop the internal confidence, and you develop this skill set and develop the internal confidence. Once you do that in many different areas, you grow. So I'm going to say something very something overly simplistic. And that is, if you want confidence, you need to do stuff. It's basically the secret of confidence. To grow in confidence, you need to do stuff. Okay? The key to overcoming fear is building a belief in yourself that you can handle things. And here I'm going to give you 3 basic steps, okay? The first step is to build some basic skills in the area you want to grow confidence, okay? I've talked about this already. I'm going to cover it again because this is so important. It's the first step. We need to maximize experiences to grow confidence. So what you want to do is rather than simply experiencing something, you want to compare yourself to where you were before. I do this with my clients all the time. They'll be like, am I growing in this? I'm struggling with this again. And I go, oh, hold on a sec. Let's go back to a document you sent me about what you're struggling with. So we look back maybe a few months ago and they go, oh, wait a second. There's been enormous changes. Yeah. So you don't only experience things, you need to analyze them and revisit them and ask yourself, here's a great bit of advice. Don't compare yourself to other people. Compare yourself to where you were yesterday. We have a short-term memory, and often we forget that we're growing. Often my kids, so I've got a 9 and 11-year-old almost, and constantly they're kind of going, am I growing? Am I growing? And because they measure themselves on the wall, it goes up slowly for them. But for us, for my wife and I, we go like, you're growing like weeds. You're growing very, very fast. We've got different perspectives, but that's because we've gone through it. And if they consistently are analyzing it, they realize, oh no, I'm growing. I can trust the process. I'm growing. Remind yourself of past successes. Now, what about if you want to grow confidence in something you've never done before? Well, again, I talked about this already. Break it down. Recognize that you have experience in a number of ways or variables related to a task or a part of a task. So for example, if you're public speaking, you can ask yourself, well have I ever explained something? Have I ever taught something to somebody in a good way? Have I ever made somebody laugh? Have I ever done this? Okay, so I've got some of these skills. Remind yourself of those, and then practice the things that you're weak on or that you can grow in, okay? So yeah, maybe you've never sold to a big business before, but maybe you've made sales. And you've sold things to individuals or smaller companies, and you've got some of the skills that are needed. So remind yourself of those before you go into a big business sales meeting. To build experiences, provide smaller, simpler experiences. And again, I know there's repetition. There's a purpose for this, okay? Instead of doing a live video for social media, try practicing in front of the mirror. Try practice, maybe then after you've practiced in front of a mirror where you're alone and there's far less shame involved or far less danger of fear, then practice recording yourself and record yourself, but don't show it to anybody. Okay? Then try it live in front of a few friends, or try recording yourself and send it to somebody who's safe. And then try doing it live in front of a few friends or family members that won't give you a hard time about it. Then finally try the live video on whatever social media platform, okay? Again, you break it down, you take steps. Start with the simplest things. Start with growing your own confidence internally, okay? Again, and then practice the exterior skill to grow your confidence internally. And then it goes back on itself over and over again. Also, here's a crazy thing, and if you want a book on growing confidence, although it's not about confidence, it is about confidence in many ways. It's a book by, and it's a classic. It's called Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. Maybe I'll put a link in the description here, but it's a book on visualization. Did you know that you can actually grow your confidence by visualizing things? I did this all the time. I lived in China for 8 years, and when I lived there, if I was struggling with my confidence in speaking, in my language abilities, and I got quite good with Mandarin, I would practice in my head on the way to the store. So if I was going to buy, I don't know, buying some vegetables from a street vendor, well, what I would do, or from the market, what I would do is I'd practice what I would say and what the other person would say. I would practice it in my head. That gave me confidence in the real situation to try it. I've given this to so many of my clients where I will say, hey, listen, instead of going into this situation all riled up and thinking you're going to fail, practice it with me a little bit. Practice it with other people a little bit. Well, when somebody's practiced it a few times, even though it's not the real situation, even in their own head, they are getting ready for something that's bigger, and then they're more likely to improve their performance in the real show. I've had so many coaches in the past in sports tell me, what you do in practice, you do in the game. So practice hard, and that's what I would encourage you to do. Practice well. Practice these things that you want to do, and if you practice in your mind has a very difficult time telling the difference between reality and fantasy. This is why we wake up from dreams and we're terrified, or we're crying, or we're happy, or we're excited, because they're real for us, and our brains have a difficult time deciding the difference. So when you practice things, our brain starts to get confused and believe, oh, I might be good at this, even though you've been practicing in your own head. I'm just getting a call. I'm going to cover that and then come back in a few seconds here. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. Secondly, so first of all, what we want to do is build those basic skills in the area that we want to grow. And secondly, what we need to do is change our vocabulary. If we want to build our confidence, we are our own harshest critics so much of the time. You know this if you're a human being. Or the tapes we play in our own heads, the names that we call ourselves are often far harsher than anyone else calls us. So we need to keep I'm going to base this on a quote by Mahatma Gandhi. I'm going to read you this quote. He said, "Keep your thoughts positive because your thoughts become your words. Keep your words positive because your words become your behavior. Keep your behavior positive because your behavior becomes your habits. Keep your habits positive because your habits become your values. Keep your values positive because your values become your destiny." One of the things that he identifies really earlier on there is our thoughts and our words are very closely tied. And I agree. So I'm going to just give you a few words that you can switch and start to change in your own life. And this will make a massive difference in your confidence, because what you're doing is taking responsibility, which I'm going to get to in another few minutes. So instead of saying, I can't, how many times do you hear this around you? I can't. Instead of saying, I can't, start to say, I won't. The difference there is, instead of saying, I have no choice, I don't have an ability, you start to say, I do have a choice. Instead of saying, I should, say, I could. So again, instead of putting shame on yourself, or I have this obligation, say, hey, I've got a choice here. Instead of saying, it's not my fault, start accepting complete responsibility. Instead of saying, it's a problem, start saying, it's an opportunity. What that does is it doesn't ignore that things are hard. What it does is it starts to shift your perspective. And instead of saying, I'm stuck here, you could say, hey, wait a second, what is the opportunity here? That's a beautiful way to start building confidence, because you start to see, I have power on some level. Instead of saying life's a struggle, start to say life is an adventure. An adventure can be used as much as possible, okay? Adventure is fantastic. So start to see life rather than a struggle and adventure, and in being curious about that. Instead of saying, I hope this works out, start to say, I believe this will work out. I often have conversations. I'm not going to go into this right now, but I have so many conversations with my kids about this. When they say, I hope, then now it's like a lottery. Well, It might happen, it might not. Again, I'm out of control. When I say I believe it's going to happen, what starts to do is I start to look for opportunities. I start to look for how I can do something. Instead of saying if only, say, you know what, next time I'm going to change something. Instead of asking the question, what will I do? Kind of throwing your hands up. Say to yourself, I know I can handle this with the right skills. And then ask yourself, what are those skills? What are those right skills? Instead of saying it's terrible, and this goes back to like it's a problem, start to say it's a learning experience. Instead of saying it's terrible, it's a learning experience. Now, often when in different communities that I've been part of, I've been called the king of the reframe, because no matter what is going on, I typically see positive things and what I can do about things that help me motivate me work towards something and towards growth, rather than shrinking away from things in life. Now, again, there's a difference between putting on rose-colored glasses and ignoring problems and going, what can I do about this? And I think that that's key. What can I do about this? Asking yourself that question all the time. I ask myself 3 questions all the time. What went well? What went poorly? What can I change for next time? What went well? What went poorly? What could I do differently for next time? That's a very good reframe of how we can think about problems, okay? Okay, I've got an action step for you specifically with this, the idea of changing your vocabulary. Start to begin paying attention to your words and the words of those around you. Read over this list that I gave you. Go back, watch it, write this down, and read over this list over and over again. Begin changing any of the words you use and that put a lack of power in your life, and start to take more power over your life, which brings me to the third point, and that is to take responsibility. So many of us think that when we take responsibility, it's going to get harder. Actually, when we take responsibility, it gives us freedom. Because when you take responsibility for the things that are not going all right in your life, you also gain the freedom of taking responsibility for the things that are going well. If it's all about the lottery, well, how do you repeat the lottery? If you bought a ticket and you won the lottery, well, great, but how do you repeat that? Now you're stuck if you lose money again, because what's the chances of hitting the lottery twice? Whereas when you take responsibility and go, you know what, I did this right, and I did this poorly. Not I'm a horrible person, but I did this well or I did this poorly. Now you can start to work with yourself on a completely different level. Okay, I'm going to read another quote by somebody else. Albert Einstein. He said, "Man must cease attributing his problems to his environment and learn again to exercise his will, his personal responsibility." Stop blaming other people and start to take responsibility for things. Stop blaming others and the economy and ask yourself, what can I do about this? Instead of saying I can't, ask how can I? What can I do? Again, this exists for everyone, and others are growing their businesses in terrible economies, okay? Or in frustrating economies. Stop whining. You aren't a victim. There's a difference between shame and guilt. So shame is about who we are. Guilt is about something that we've done. Get away from the idea that there's something wrong with me and start going to the idea of, what did I do wrong? What did I do that I could change? It's a very different understanding, because if there's something wrong with me, what do? I'm broken. But you start to ask the question of, what could I do about this situation? What did I do that's different? Now you can take action. Change the way you talk again. Nobody makes you anything. You make me so angry. The economy's killing me. Stop blaming or saying that something else is affecting you. You are in charge of your emotions. You are in charge of your reactions. Begin asking yourself what is going on and how you can make a change, okay? Often we're stuck because we gain something from being stuck. Many people whine because they get attention. I was just watching this with my son the other day. He was going, because he wanted us to say, oh, what's wrong? So often we are stuck because we gain something from being stuck. We can ask ourselves, we can, I want attention? And people say, oh, well, poor David, poor Michelle. Or do we want to change our life? Do we want somebody to feel pity for us, or do we want to change? Legitimately, long term. Also, decide on what you want in life and begin acting on it. So write down what you want. Begin to ask yourself what you can do about it. I've got a 10-week program that I utilize with small business owners. It's called the Fundamentals Program, and it helps people through all of this stuff. Decide what you want. Write it down, plan it, set these goals, and then start an actionable way to work towards it. Become aware of how many choices are available to you. This is all about taking responsibility. Become aware of how many choices are available to you. When I went to Sweden and then China, I realized that people reach the same results from many different directions, okay? There's the phrase in our culture, there's more than one way to skin the cat. I went there thinking, oh, we do everything right in Canada, where I'm from. And then I started realizing, wait a second, actually the people that do things in other countries actually do them far better a lot of the time. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you lose a contract in business. So the irresponsible person blames the economy and the lack of the intelligence of the prospect, right? The responsible person goes, I could have communicated better, or I could have connected better, or I could have asked better questions, or I could have been better prepared beforehand, or I could take a sales course and become an expert at this. This has happened to me in the past where I've lost deals, and I've had to learn, what can I do about this differently next time? Now, here's some action steps to help take more responsibility. What I want you to do is, again, you can take any of these action steps, practice them on your own time, but I hate giving information about something like confidence without giving action steps. I love giving action steps so that you can actually take something from this rather than just information. Here's one action step. Each night, write down a few things you did to help you toward your goals. So focus on not the result, but the action that you took. What that will do is create taking responsibility of things that are going right. Then write down one thing. So write down 3 things you did well, and then one thing that you could have done better. Okay? That starts to change how we think. And as you change how you think, you start to build confidence. Because you start to see, wait a second, I am doing things right. So much of the time we struggle with our inner dialogue of, oh, I did this wrong, and I did this wrong, and I did this. And schools teach us this. Parents often teach us this, to focus on the things we're doing wrong. Focus on the things you're doing right. That will help build confidence. Here's another thing to help your confidence. Develop a dynamite routine in the morning. Now, if you go, I'll include a link in the notes to my website, but make sure that you watch some videos on routine and develop a great routine. Eliminate news media from your morning. Don't focus on what's going wrong in the world. Don't read your emails and get down on terrible communication from others. Focus on gratitude. Focus on what's important to you. I discuss this a lot, again, in my fundamentals program, in these free videos that I give on morning routines or habits. Feel free to watch those, okay? They're not going to cost you anything but time. I don't charge anything for most of this stuff. Put yourself in a good state in the evening before so that you can better handle mornings. Start to develop a good evening routine. Here's another suggestion. Surround yourself with the right people and coaches. Avoid people who are constantly talking about the negative. There are a few people in my life that I love. I love them in so many ways, and I will not spend a lot of time with them because they're such negative people. So I protect myself from that. And you know what? That actually gives me more confidence because I'm not thinking about all of the problems all the time. I can focus on what's going well. And again, this is not about rose-colored glasses. This is not about ignoring what's going on. This is about connecting with what's going well and to change our minds and to go, what can I do about what's going wrong? Find people that are encouraging and understand what you want to get better at, okay? Now, I was also going to talk, I'm looking at the time though, and I don't have the time to do it tonight. I'll do it some other time. But I was looking at affirmations. So maybe put in the comment section, if you want me to cover affirmations, this makes a big difference or can make a big difference for people with confidence. If you want me to cover affirmations, I'll do a video on affirmations and what affirmations are good for, what they're terrible for. So many people mess around with affirmations and they kind of treat them as this magic wand that somehow is going to change everything. They don't change everything unless you use them properly and unless you do them well, okay? It's not about, I will be rich in a week, I will be rich in a week. It's about changing your own behaviors and your own patterns and your own belief systems. Repetition helps with that. So if you want help with this, if you want more information on this, put it in the comment section, and I'm happy to cover affirmations at some other point in time. I don't think a lot of people do this really well, so I'd love to help you out. If that is important to you, I'm happy to give you more time if this is valuable. I want you to thank you. If you've made it this far in this video, thank you for watching. Thank you for investing in yourself. This is a fantastic, it is a high calling. It is a fantastic action to take, isn't to invest in yourself. Take notes on this. Yeah, sure, learn information from videos and whatever, books, read, whatever you can do. But most importantly, take action. Out of all of this, here's what I encourage you to do. Out of all of what you've heard in this video, what I'd suggest is to ask yourself, what is one thing that really stuck with me, one action that I can take? that will change my confidence over the next few weeks, few months, few years. Just take that one action. Don't do everything. Just take one action. When you do one action well, it'll make a far better difference. I think it was Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee has a quote. It goes something like this. I'll probably butcher it, so I apologize for this. But he says something along the lines of, I do not fear the person who has learned 1,000 kicks or practiced 1,000 kicks. I fear the person who has practiced one kick 1,000 times because they're very good at that, right? Become really good at one thing and then move on to the next thing. Take one action step that you can take action right now and become really good at that one thing. Don't worry about all the rest. You'll have time to work on all the other things. In the end, what I'd like to encourage you to do is to really enjoy this week. Wherever this week finds yourself, do what you need to take care of yourself. Take action and grow your confidence. This is something that anyone can do. I'm going to finish by saying this. You've got this. You've got this. You can learn. You can grow. Do what you need to do to grow. Have a fantastic week. We'll see you later.